Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts. Today, I want to show you how to make an easy napkin with a decorative edge. It's so easy to make, such a practical thing to make, makes good gifts as well, of course. But what I like about these is that they are whatever size I want to make them. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But you can throw them in the washing machine, wash them up, and they are ready to go again. The other nice thing about this is that you use a different fabric on one side than the top, on the back I should say, than the top, so you can use them however you want. So if you like to fold your napkins in fancy ways, you can show the side that you like the most. Okay, let's talk about what we need to make these napkins, because they're pretty simple. First off, you need to decide what size do you want your napkin to be, I should say. So this particular one, I started with fabric that is 14.5 inches wide. So I have two pieces of fabric. They're put wrong sides together and they're 14.5 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew with a decorative stitch along the edges and then trim to that decorative stitch. And the decorative stitch is going to be in a little ways. I tried making it where the stitch was only about a 1/4 inch away. Found it a little difficult to trim. So I moved it in. It's probably about 1/2 inch in when I stitched it. So it comes down to probably a little bit less than 14 inches, but it's still a pretty good sized napkin. If you want to make it bigger, you can do that. If you want to make napkins that are for cocktail hour and you want to make them smaller, you can make them smaller as well. So up to you, but keep in mind that you are going to lose some fabric when you put the stitch on and then trim up to the stitch. Okay, so I started with 14.5 inches. As I said, two pieces. Right now they are wrong size together because that's how they're going to get stitched. And something I found that was helpful before I stitched them was to use a water-soluble glue to keep those pieces of fabric together as I worked with them. So what I would do, you take the noisy stuff, parchment paper, so it protects my cutting mat. You may be using your pressing surface, whatever, but I always like to have some parchment paper underneath so I don't go crazy when I'm using glue. Do you go crazy when you use glue? Okay, so I'm just kind of running around. It doesn't have to be right on the edge, but close to the edge. And then I am going to, put these together, right? Now, if you want to, you could actually press to set the glue. And if you're doing that, I would also put parchment paper over top. Or you can just go along like this and just add the glue, right? So you're going to do that on all 4 sides. All right. And, you would think that maybe this is a step that you don't need to do. But again, with my prototype, I found, even with my walking foot, that my fabric was moving a bit. So I figured this is probably an easy way to keep that from happening, and it doesn't really take very long to do either. All right, we just got this one more side here. Just tack down either end there. So just kind of open it up and put that glue in. What I'm using here, by the way, is this ODIF 505 temporary adhesive glue stick. If you check up above or in the description below, I'll put a link to that, and you can get that if you want. It doesn't stay blue, by the way. It dries clear, in case you're getting a little concerned about that vibrant color. All right, so now that I've got this done, the next step is to go to the sewing machine and start doing some kind of a decorative stitch. And I want to talk about that at the machine, so let's go. Now, there's a few things to consider and some decisions to make before the next step. First thing I want to decide is what color thread do I want to use for that decorative stitch. So you can have something that matches your fabrics, or you might go with something that is a complete contrast. Totally up to you. Today I'm using kind of a gold color that should match this fairly well. You'll still see it, of course, because we're going to be using a satin type stitch. So that's the next thing to talk about. So I'm working with the Janome CM17 today. So thanks so much to Janome Canada for providing me with this machine so I can share this project with you. And on this machine, under the decorative stitches, there is a category that is satin stitches, and there's lots of different stitches here. So when I'm choosing a stitch, a decorative stitch, I tend to go to those particular ones because the stitching is really close together, right? Because this stitching is actually finishing off the edge on the napkin. So you don't want it to be a really open stitch and, it starts fraying and comes away or things like that. So I recommend that you look at the satin stitches there. The other thing to consider is that you are going to be trimming up to that stitch. So you want to have a stitch that's easy to trim up to. I know it sounds weird, but the one I'm working with today is the Satin Stitch 39. So you're going to see how that looks, and it's just a nice gentle curve, makes it easy to trim. So make it easy for yourselves. Don't go with some really complicated satin stitch that you're going to take hours to trim, okay? So doing that. Now, next thing, of course, we have to know how to set up our machine. Well, we're using a kind of a zigzag type stitch, if you will. So you want to make sure that you've got your regular or zigzag needle plate installed. And I like to use the AccuFeed Flex system on this. So I'm going to be activating that, and I am using this UD foot. So it's an open toe foot, makes it easy to see my stitches and see what's happening with them. So I like to use that when I'm doing this type of work. So we've got the thread, we've got the same thread in the bobbin, because you are going to see that bobbin, right? It's going to be on the back side. So you are going to see the bobbin thread, so I'm matching my top and bobbin threads. I'm using a blue tip needle for this. That should work just fine. And you want to slow your machine down a little bit when you're using decorative stitches, right? Now, I said I was going to use the AccuFeed Flex system. How am I going to do that with a decorative stitch? Glad you asked. You have to set it up manually. So what you'll do is go into your screen, you will click on the hamburger menu, that's the 3 lines you'll see at the top, and you'll see manual dual feed setting, and it will show that it's off, okay? So you're going to click for it to be on, you're going to click OK at the bottom of the screen, and then it is going to be activated, okay? You may not see things change on the screen, but you'll be able to tell it's activated because the foot I'm using has those little feed dogs on it. You'll see them start moving because the AccuFeed Flex system is now activated. All right, lots of details, right? So probably takes as long to get set up and make all these decisions as it does to stitch out the napkin. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so it's going to take a little while to stitch this out because you're doing this tight zigzag stitch or a satin stitch to do this, and you want to go all the way around. And of course, it depends on how big your napkin is too. All right, so let's get started. What I did is I stayed with the default stitch as far as the width. So it's 9 millimeters in width, but I did take the length down to 0.35. I think it was at 0.4, and I took it just a little bit closer, a little bit tighter. It's still working okay without overlapping the stitches. So you're going to start somewhere on a side. Okay, don't start in a corner, start in a side. And with this foot, I'm just lining it up along the edge. So this is going to take it in about a 1/2 inch. Okay, makes it easier for trimming, as I mentioned before. So let's start and see what we do. Just double check, make sure everything's set up, and I've got the stitch I want. Okay, let's go. Okay, I'm going a little faster than I want to do for this stitch, so I can adjust my speed control a bit. There we go. Okay, and you can see that those little feed dogs are going back and forth. They're gripping that fabric, so that's how I know that the AccuFeed Flex system has been activated. I just want to make sure I don't have any threads that are trailing along with me. Okay, I go a little bit quicker. Okay, let's see how we're doing. All right, let's just take a little bit of a look. I think you can see how that's going along. Oh, it's looking gorgeous, isn't it? Doesn't that look rich? It's such a nice color. And that's going to be really pretty on this napkin. All right, you do not want to sit here and watch me stitch all the way around, do you? I don't think so. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like and our next step. Okay, so I'm almost at the end here, and I can see it's not going to join up quite as good as I hoped it would, which happens sometimes. So what I might do is move my needle myself over so it's closer, so it's going to meet the other one, hopefully. There we go. All right, so it's not perfect, but it's good enough. So I've got it all stitched around now, as you can see. I'm liking that yellow color. So the next step is to do some trimming. So I'm going to go back to my cutting surface and I'll show you how I do that. So the next step is to trim. So I want to trim right up along these stitching lines. Not through them, hopefully not through them, but right up to them, okay? So you can see how I've got this extra fabric here. So that helps to give me something to hang on to as I stitch around. So I like having that extra space there rather than just a quarter inch. It's just a little too close for my comfort anyway. All right, so let me just snip that off. So different choices you have for the type of scissors you want to use for this. So I like to use something that I can get in there really close. These little scissors came in this Janome set, which has all these different scissors and accessories in it. So there was another one that is also a nice sharp little one to get in there. Lots of good choices in here, but I thought this one was going to work the best for me, and they're nice and sharp. So I'm going to start somewhere along here and just start trimming. Okay, so just take your time, go along, and you're cutting through both of the layers of fabric, just to be clear. And you're going to keep going along. So this part takes a little bit of time because you do have to go slow. All right, it probably took me about 7 or 8 minutes maybe to stitch out the edge on the napkin. So that's not bad, right? But it'll take me probably a little longer than that to go along here, okay? Trying to be careful that I don't cut into those stitches, right? Okay, so this will take me a little bit of time, as you can see, but the result will be worth it. So I would keep doing that until I have it all completely done, at which point in time it's going to look like this. So you've got this finished edge here, so you don't have to worry about any fraying or raveling or anything like that. It's perfect. As I mentioned before, it makes great gifts. So while you can make these, and they make great gifts to give, what about making some coasters to go with them? If you're wondering how to do that, check out this video that has all the details that you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.